Are there numbers that are bad for you as well as good? Is your fate really in the palm of your hands? We're going to ask all these questions and more by discussing the Diddy trial. We're going to look at it from a metaphysical approach. Hello, Lloyd. We are in the middle of the trial of the century, and
No
it's
lie.
scandalous. It is so scandalous.
How you doing, Kimberly? It is true. You know, they thought O.J. Simpson in the 1990s was something. This eclipsed this with, because with O.J. Simpson was just one person, Nicole. You know what I'm saying? This one here, a whole bunch of everybody in industry and celebrities and everybody are included. So,
When you think about it, when you look over history and you think about it, um, what do you think? And I just want to be clear to everybody, we're not here to give opinions on who we think is right or who we think is wrong. What we're going to do today is we're going to go over the numerology and we're going to show how, we're going to show what the numbers say. And we're going to look at the palms because the palms play a very important role too. The palms tell us a lot about people. And see, if you were in the last palmistry class, then you would have
they
found
would
that
see
out.
what we're talking about.
Yeah, but we're going to give you a little tease because we're going to talk about the palm of some of the people that are key players in this. But back to my question, what do you think of all of this? When you look back over history and over time, and I know I use the phrase the trial of the century, and maybe it's not the trial of the century. Maybe I'm just too young to remember anything as big.
Well, at that time, when it was O.J. Simpson, it was scandalous. Plus, there were race issues. She was white, he was black, and so it was like almost people taking sides. But it was just only one person. This involves a whole lot of people. In fact, it involves an industry. It's just that Diddy is at the middle of it. He's at the center of it, the nucleus of the hurricane. But I mean, everybody and their mothers coming before the courts. They're dragging all kind of people's name in there, from Clive Davis, Tyler Perry to T.D. Jakes. I mean, it's just like, whoa. And this is only about going into the fourth week of an 8-week trial, which I think is interesting, you know?
Yeah, and one thing that I found about this, you talked about the OJ case, and you talked about how that was so important because it kind of separated people with the factor of race. I see it this way, and I want to know if you kind of feel the same way. To me, in this one, it's more about gender, more about the male and the female, who has the power, who has the control, and who has the consent. So to me, it's like, there's some women that are like, he was wrong, he should have did it. And then there's some men that are like, well, what some people are saying. But to me, it seems like it's kind of like a low-key gender war in a subtle type of way.
To a degree, and it tells you that men rule the roost in this industry, and women
Mm.
were like the subservient. Women were being controlled, especially in Cassie's testimony. She spent 4 days. That's how the first week started. 4 days of just her testimony, and she was forthright. She was very honest. It was very revealing. And then once the video was released, that took place at the Intercontinental Hotel on March the 5th of 2016, that told it all. And by the way, it was the 8th universal day, which is opposition. So when we put things up, what we're going to do is set up like, what are his numbers? That is Diddy's. What are his stress numbers? And then we can begin to weave things. But this is, and it gets more fascinating by the day, more revealing by the day. And it tells you karmically that, you know, when you're doing things, things will catch up with you. And this is an understatement, to be honest.
Yes, yes,
It
it
really is.
is. It truly is. And one thing I was also thinking about is the fact that Pluto in Aquarius, we talked
Mhm,
about this last year. We talked about how there was going to be this massive shift.
mhm,
We're in the middle of the 9 year.
mhm,
The 9 years really transformation, this
mhm.
endings, closure, things falling apart, and look at what's happening. It's like it's making celebrity not so fascinating anymore.
Yeah, I think people are beginning to look at celebrities in a whole nother light in terms, because we were all smitten by the glitz and the glamour and the paparazzi and the lights and the performances and things like that. But now it's like behind the scenes, and it gets a whole different story of how people collaborated. When Monique got up and testified, by the way, being a Sagittarius 2 person, how she was stopped by Tyler Perry, um, Oprah Winfrey, and it all had something to do with Diddy, which is interesting. So, you know, I was mistaken, because I think I said he was worth about 400 million. They said he was close to worth $1 billion.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's what I think about too. And maybe I'm just too logical, but I'm thinking to myself, there's people walking this earth that don't have a place to live, they don't have food to eat, and you got $1 billion, and you're just like doing what? Well, like I said, everything is alleged. We don't know what happened.
Well, you
And
and I are on the same page with that, because if you look at each of these celebrities, each of them got hundreds of millions and millions of dollars. You think they'd all come together for the purpose of, you know, divesting their money in communities, low income communities. It ain't about paying everybody's rent, but it's helping old ladies out, if nothing else, helping orphan children out. You know what I'm saying? We ain't gonna say you can't save the whole world, but at least do something with that money, other than with Diddy. He has a $7 million mansion. I'm not hating on him with all the money he's got, but there's people ain't got nothing to, you know what, and okay. So I mean, and so people, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. And I'm saying this: people get so caught up with the dollars that they don't see that there are people who are in such need at this point. And of course, you can't save the whole world, but in the old days, hustlers and number runners would go back into the community and pay old ladies rent, send the kids to summer camp. Ain't none of that happening. None of that.
they're caught up in the dollars and
Yes.
not the cents.
Yes. You know, very good. And so what is happening, this trial is actually showing the dark side of the entertainment industry. And Diddy is just one representative. And one of the things with this title is about the 4-8 combination, because he's a 4, and everything about Diddy was a 4, from his total name of Sean John Combs, to him born on the 4th of the month. When we add up his date, we'll see all that in a moment. Everything came to a 4. 4 followed him everywhere, and yet his major opposition number, which you see, is always the 6, 8, and 2. And all the things that happened, especially the women who were significant, were either 6s and 8s. And the rule is, whenever a 6 and an 8, or 6 and a 4, or 8 and a 4 gets together, they should go to the nearest exit. But yet that happened. So maybe they were in his life for a reason. But I know this: they're all bringing him down. They're all bringing them down. And I don't think they're doing it deliberately as so much as things happen. And what was the catalyst? And since 4 and 8 are direct oppositional numbers, Cassie Ventura, born on the 26th, 2 plus 6 is 8. And by the way, I want to read to you what the 26 denotes. To give you an example, it says, this number is full of the gravest warnings for the future. It foreshadows disasters brought about, associations with others ruined by bad speculation, by bad partnerships, unions, and bad advice. And if she did not have that, I mean, and and it was about an 11-year relationship too, a long time.
The question I have for you is, do you think that this is something that is, just coincidental? My life is just, well, maybe he or she or anybody involved in this, they're just like, this is just how my life is. Or do you think that it's really the subconscious symbols, our numbers and planets that are playing a role in these things occurring in our life?
I don't think it's a coincidence, but for people who can't explain it any other way, it appears to be a coincidence. Just a moment ago, when you mentioned Pluto entering Aquarius, well, Pluto entered Aquarius in November of last year in 2024, and will stay there until 2044. And Pluto is a revolutionary planet. Aquarius is a revolutionary sign, and I said at that time, this is a period where winners become losers, and losers become winners.
You know what I just thought about too when you said that? The fact that we're talking about Pluto in Aquarius, I mean, yeah, Pluto in Aquarius, and we're talking about him, and you're saying he's ruled by the four. Well, Pluto is ruled by, I mean, is in Aquarius, which is ruling the number four.
And not only that, but Pluto has been assigned to the zodiac sign of Scorpio, which is Diddy's sign.
I
And
have a
so it just
question.
seems that it just been a change. Go ahead.
The date, May 5th, 2025. That was a date that the trial was scheduled to start. Is there any significance of that date, especially for him?
Yes, it was an 8 universal day.
Wow.
Yes, it was. Again, when we show our chart in just a moment, you'll see that I list his good numbers, his stress numbers, and his stress numbers are the 6, the 8, and the 2 in that order. And so anytime these come up, and first of all, each month is ruled by a number. His major opposition number is the 6. Well, 6 rules 2 months in the zodiac. May, coincidentally, see what I'm saying? Or Libra. Okay? This is all I'm saying. And so once you see this, at first I was not interested, but as I got more engrossed, we started looking at the numbers, and I shared it with you. This thing is so interesting, and especially the major women in his life that I point out. Now, he had women like Young Miami, who was an Aquarius born February the 11th, other women too. But the major ones, they were all oppositional numbers to him, either 6s or 8s.
So, how do you think that this trial and what we're witnessing now is going to affect us in the future? Like, do you think that it's going to be some kind of long term transformation that's happening behind this, and this is just the catalyst for something later to happen?
Yes, I do think it's a catalyst that's going to wake people up as how they look and view entertainers and celebrities. And knowing behind all that glitz and glitter, you know, everything that shines is not gold. And I think that's what's going to reveal itself. That there's really a dark side to the so-called bright side that's projected on the screen, on the stage. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's going to be a part of it. And who would think that one person had so many tentacles, so many branches to all these people? And I mean, names was coming up. I understand Barack Obama's name was mentioned. You know what I'm saying? Like, what does that? Hey, yo, it's
I
It's
feel like this will definitely change things because I feel like there's going to be, because the way it looks like to me in the entertainment industry now, it's like the people that are, they have the in crowd and they have the out crowd. If you're in the in crowd and you're willing to do things and, you know, play a part of that role, then you get the publicity, you get the fame, you become a celebrity. But the other people, some people that are just as talented, that work just as hard, you know, they, if they're not in that in crowd, it's like they kind of disappear. And I think that's what's going to happen. It's going to be like a global, well, not global, but well, could be global because we don't know how big this thing is, but it could be definitely a shift
well,
for our economy.
well, you know, Monique brought that out when she appeared in court. She said that how because she was no longer part of the in crowd when Tyler Perry wanted her to do, um, I forgot the name of the movie with the single title, and wanted her to do the promo for free, and her and Oprah and Daniel, whatever his name was, they blackballed her. She was told that she was difficult because she didn't go along with the in crowd. So she is a celebrity in her own right, a very funny sister. I had the pleasure of talking to her on an interview one day. Very, very funny. But yet she was, but one of the things about her that made it different, she spoke her truth. She was not in the fear. She named names. She said she had documents, she had receipts, she had recordings of Tyler Perry and whatnot. And that's when Diddy's name came up into it. So this thing runs deep and wide and far.
Yeah, yeah, it does. Well, we're going to get into
Yeah,
this.
'cause we want to explain so because we're not trying to be opinions like on TV where they're talking back and forth. We're looking at the numbers, and this is what we want people to see. Um, how with once you know a person's numbers, there is a good side to the numbers and a stress side to the numbers, and hopefully, this is what we're going to do as we move forward with this, because this is very fascinating, and we couldn't make this up. Diddy was born Sean Puffy Combs on November the 4th of 1969. He was born in Harlem and moved to Mount Vernon as a youngster, and that's where he was raised. And that's where he met the first wife, I mean, the first mother of his child, Justin. Her name was Misa Holland. And believe it or not, she was born on January the 15th of 6.
Another six?
Yep,
Are you kidding me?
yep. Kim Porter, a 6. uh, J, Jennifer Lopez or J Lo, a 6, and Cassie an 8. All of his opposition numbers. He should have told
Wow.
me. At least I'd have told him. Now, whatever he done, but it's just interesting. And these women have all been pivotal in his career in some way, especially Cassie, because once Cassie filed a lawsuit in 2020, late 23, 24, everything came tumbling down then, literally. Everybody came forward, and it's been nonstop ever since. It's almost people that volunteer say, "I like to get on the stand." They ain't even have to worry about being called. They want to know, can I sit up here and run my mouth and tell you what I know?
Let's talk about the 4 to 8 relationship because
Yes.
this is kind of interesting.
Well, 4 and 8s are always thought of as being the rule of thumb is they should not be together as much as possible because they 4s and 8s are the only two numbers that seem to at times have things outside of their control, especially 8. This is why 8 is called a number of fate or destiny. I'll tell an 8 person, yeah, you might have married this person, but originally you wanted to marry somebody else, but as fate or destiny happens, you wound up marrying this person. Or you thought you would go down this career path, but as fate or destiny happens, you wind up going down another career path. And it's not that 8 people born on the 8th, the 17th, the 26th, or under the sign of Capricorn, Aquarius, or Libra don't have some control over their affairs, but it almost appears as if a higher force steps in too and gives it direction, give it focus. Okay. 4 is always the odd and unusual, very unpredictable, very contrarian, so to speak. Always considered a rebel, But I call fours the geniuses though, because they don't do things the normal way. They tend to think outside the box. So anybody who's born on the 4th, the 13th, the 22nd, or the 31st, or under the signs particularly of Aquarius or a Leo, they would be the ones who would be those who fit that niche. And so the first person to land on the moon was a Leo. The second person, in fact, to land on the moon with John uh, John Glenn was actually Buzz Aldrin and Aquarius. So they were both those kinds of signs. So, and the rule is that when they get together, it can sometimes make for some very fatalistic types of situations. And this was the case that um, uh, Cassie testified for 4 straight days. And she was very truthful. They asked her some very direct, honest questions. She answered, talked about UTIs and all these other things she got, and other things and the abusiveness and whatnot. And so, yes, they look like a handsome couple, but this is why they say looks can be deceiving. And so, this is one of the things that we get caught up in this society. If the person's got a nice appearance, and if you notice, the people who rip you off are the ones that look so legit. Those are the con artists. They'll take your investment money. They'll take your passport money. They'll take all the money you got from elders too. And so it's that outward look of legitimacy. But those are sometimes the ones you got to watch. And those who normally wind up in these federal prisons that are like summer camps, or one that ripped off millions and millions of dollars under the pretext that, oh, they're okay. I'll give them my money. Yes, you will. And you wind up with nothing on your end. So, yes, you happen. This is why we don't know what goes on behind closed doors. That's why there's a public side, a private side, and a very personal side. And all she did was simply reveal the dark side of that relationship, and it wasn't pretty. And so when you look at that, it's like, wow, wow, I wish I could have a relationship like that. That looks so nice. You know what I'm saying? They look so happy. They look so peaceful. But yet you got films of him kicking her, abusing her, pictures of taking up knots on her head that he did. Very abusive. And for 11 years, too. 11 years. And by the way, when he met her, she was 22 years old because she's born on the 26th of the month. And in fact, when she signed up for Bad Boy Records, Kimbaley, her first hit came out, You and Me, and it was in the year 2006. Well, if you take those zeros out, that's her 26. That was when she did her first preview record deal with Bad Boy Records in 2006, which is her eighth. And the title was You and Me. And she did a couple of after that. But I just think it's interesting how these numbers follow. But yes, before the public, but behind closed doors, yeah, never know what's going on. That's why we're going to take a look at their hands too, because listen, you can tell a lot. See, the face may deceive, but the hand never. And if somebody had looked at P. Diddy's hands, they'd have probably dealt with it a whole different way, especially the women in his life.
There's something that I was thinking about earlier that you said. You were talking about how they could look like the best couple in
Mm-hmm.
the world, but there could be so many problems. And I remember hearing this young girl talking about how the first time she ever saw Cassie, she was just like, wow, she's incredible, she's amazing. And she almost felt like, I wish I could be her. And then when she found out everything that she had to go through, she was like, wow, I didn't even know all of that was going on. So you have to like think about what you're asking for and what you're wishing for, because somebody else may seem to have it all, but you don't know what they're going through. And
See,
you
this
don't.
is one of the things when we are out in the public, we always show our best side. But then when you begin to live with a person, you begin to see all the flaws, all the warts, all the pimples, all the moles, all the things that are not. But when we're outside, and as my mother rightfully call it, the courtship ritual. When we're dating, I'm going to make sure I wash my under my arms. I'm going to brush my teeth, brush my hair, put some cologne on, looking good, smelling good. The woman is going to do the same. And then about 3 or 4 months later, all that they saw was not all what it was. That's how it is.
Yeah, I remember hearing guys talking about that too, when they go to the club and pick up a girl from the club, and the next day they don't even recognize her.
Exactly.
But we're looking at the birthdays here. As you can
Mhm.
see, Cassie Ventura Fine birthday is August 26th, 1986, and P. Diddy, November the 4th, 1969. And I know you have some things for his birthday. So we're going to take a look at that chart to
Yeah.
see what information we can pull from that chart.
First of all, he's born on the fourth day of the month. His original name, Sean Joan Combs, has 13 letters in the name. 1 plus 3 is 4. And then when I took the month, the day, and the year he's born, added it down and added down to 1984. And when I add those numbers across, it adds the number 22, which is a 4. Now, this is important because it's not just Diddy. Every single person living and breathing, walking this planet has numbers that are very good for them and numbers that challenge them. Well, his key numbers are the 1, 4, and 9. His best day is always on a Sunday, a Tuesday, and a Wednesday. And then you see all the dates, as long as they add up to the 1, the 4, and the 9, like the 10th, the 13th, the 18th, because 1 plus 0 is 1, 1 plus 3 is 4, 1 plus 8 is 9, followed by the 19th, 22nd, 27th, 28th, and 31st. And these are his most influential months, which is always in February, April, June, August, and November. And
Hold on 1 minute. You know I'm petty.
that's all
Okay.
right.
I'm just making sure that this is not a typo. His middle name is actually John,
Mm-hmm.
but that's a 4 right there. You're spelling your name totally different because he spells it for business purposes Jean, like John, like the French, like a French name or something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so it shows you the difference of a change in a letter. But just as Diddy has these numbers that favor him, in my best-selling book, Numbers in You, that's available on Amazon or other places where you buy books, everybody has a number that's important to them. And at the same time, everybody has numbers that are antagonistic. And what I always find interesting, Kimberly, when I appear on these shows and whatnot, TV shows, radio, everybody want to know their lucky numbers, their best numbers. But nobody says to me, well, what numbers cause me stress?
That's
It's
the
like
most
a balance.
important ones.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And had he known that his opposition numbers was the 6, 8, and 2, and out of the 4, the main ladies we're going to talk about, each carried either a 6 or an 8, I'd have said you need to do that with the highest degree of caution. That's all it is. That's all it is. And in fact, when you look at young Miami, who was one of his latest things, she's coming out of Florida. She's born on the 11th, and 1 plus 1 is 2. He
You
did.
know,
Mary J. Blige was born on a 2, and Little
yeah,
Kim was born on a 2.
yeah, he's connected with a lot of twos too. That's kind of interesting to me. Direct opposition numbers.
To his 9. Yeah.
Direct opposition numbers. You know what? We're about to get into his name, and I just want everybody, me, I call him P. Diddy. Since I saw what his real middle name is, I might start calling him John from now on. I'm just gonna be like, "What's up, John?" But I want to know from everybody that's watching, what do you know P. Diddy, John, Sean? What do you know him as? Put that down in the chat and let us know, because it's interesting, because there are so many names, and Lloyd is about to go through those names for us right now and let us know what's going on with these names.
Well, you know what's interesting? When he was in his late 20s, he had formed Sean John clothing line. He used his first and last name, first and middle name, to form his clothing line at 29 years old. So he was always enterprising. But, there was this thing about Puff, or call him Puffy. And they said that when he was a youngster, he had anger issues, which is shown in his hand. We'll when we get to his hands, I'll show you that. And he would huff and he would puff, and so that would call him Puff or Puffy. And so, in 1996, he named himself uh, Puff Daddy. Then in 2001, he did P Diddy, and then 2000 August of 2005, he did Diddy. And as early as November of 2017, he named himself Love, which is 4 letters, or and then Brotherly Love. He said on TV.
And this
So
is
he thought
something
he
I'm going to
changed
talk about too. I have a video that will be coming out also, but instead of being about Diddy, it's going to be about Bad Boy Records because we're going to talk about the business side as well too. And that's one of the names that one of the things we talked about just a few minutes this second is the different name changes, and we're
it.
going to get into what's making that happen
Now, if
in
you
that
can back
video.
up a bit, I want to show you how these change of names that most of them were fours. Okay.
Do
So
you think he knew what he was doing?
I don't know. A lot of times people do things subconsciously. And for them, once you raise their consciousness, oh, it's a coincidence because they don't know how to explain it any other way. It's just a coincidence. But for people who are more esoterically inclined, there's really no such thing as a coincidence. It's just an awareness, you know? So when I did his name, which is Sean John Combs, it had a total of 13 letters in the name. Yes, there it is at the bottom. So if you look at P. Diddy, the way he has it, I'm using the Chaldean system of numbers. It's 841441 that adds up to 22 or 4. I thought that was very interesting. He was known as Puffy at first. Okay, if you look at that, that adds up to 31, and 3 plus 1 is 4. Then when he did change it to Puff Daddy, that added to 44, which is an 8. Okay. Maybe that's why Puff didn't last too long. He was known as Puff Daddy, but they would always call him Puffy or P. Diddy. And then he called himself Diddy, which he's known to now. And so although the name don't add up to a 4, what's interesting, his numbers are the 1, 4, and 5. So just to make up the 14. And 14 is called dangers from the natural forces: water, air, earth, fire. So that this is considered 14 is considered one of the karmic numbers. And if you notice, although the name don't add up to a 4, the 4 is repeated more than any other number in that name that he's now known by, you know? And then when he did Love, that's 4 letters. So there was a change. And this took place in November of 2017 when he changed his name to Love. Why, I don't know what got into him. Now, when he was in on a show in August of 2005, it was on the Today Show. He said that people get mixed up with P. Diddy. And he said, well, y'all just call me Diddy. And that's how that started back in 2005. Okay. But then it was also in years later, 12 years later, in 2017, that he decided to call himself Love and then Brother Love. So it just shows because people do go through transformations, but what's odd, the gender that goes through the most transition of a name are women. They'll have a maiden name, a married name, another married name, or whatever the case is. When we change names, as a rule, it's mainly more for philosophical, religious, cultural reasons, things of that nature. But he changed his name, all relating to his development in his entertainment industry, from Bad Boy Records to Bad Boy Entertainments.
That's
And
a lot of history about the name. And
yeah,
it's amazing how those fours, we say follow him. Do you think that's the best way for us to say it? Like the fours seem to be, and the eight seem to be following him. But like you were talking about the 4-8 relationship, fours attract eights and
and
eights
eight will
attract
attract forward,
fours.
yes. But the rule of thumb is basically, they need to give each other some space. Where is it that a 4 and an 8 combination can get together? Um, and one of the oddities going back is, for example, former President George Bush Jr., who was born on a 6, and his wife is born on a 4. but they've been together since they were married. That's not to say they don't have no drama, but the rule of thumb is fours are often attracted to eights, eights are often attracted to fours, but oftentimes the first sign that something is wrong, they need to separate. And and Cassie, in this case, born on the 8, got that sign real early in the relationship. And it shouldn't have taken 11 years. But then again, she was young, she was moldable. He had control over her career, her music. He got her to model in magazines, Mademoiselle, Teenage, all these magazines. So it was probably very intoxicating to her. But the price she paid, to this day, she probably needs therapy.
Yeah. And perhaps the six also follows because the six and eight are kind of friendly to each other, both earth signs. You think that's maybe what it is?
Well, sixes and eights are both earth signs, that's for sure. Definitely. But he's a water sign. That is Diddy, a water sign with an air number, you know. But if you look at when he founded, even Bad Boy Records was in 1993, and that added up to a 22. And then his debut album, No Way Out, was released on the 22nd. I mean, there was so many fours. I says I don't want to tie up everything, but it's just kind of like you could just see this. You could just see this. And
You know what I say about the water sign with the air number or vice versa?
what's that?
It can cause a tsunami. At times it can be calm and flowing, and then at other times you get this big burst of wind,
Be
tornado,
turbulent, right?
hurricane, and then it's like all over the place. So that's a combination that you should be aware of. Be aware of your emotions, and yeah, that's
Well,
what
that's
they.
kind of what he demonstrated, because some videos, even before this went to trial, when you did some, how he would get upset in his office and just get out of control, probably scaring everybody. And but it just shows you that there is karma, and eights and fours are the karmic numbers.
Wow.
Eventually things will catch up with you. And actually all of us are subject to some degree of karma. So for me, that's why I try to stay on the best side. I am not perfect, but I don't be blocking nobody's blessings. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I have enough that I try to deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
Go to that level, or controlling people. But once we show his hand, which will be later on, you can see, and I mean, well, all that'll be explained. But and he became the executive producer of reality TV show Making the Band in 2002, which is a 4. And then it was on August the 16th of 2005 on the Today Show is when he announced that P Diddy would no longer be P Diddy but Diddy, and it was a 4 Universal Day when it was done. And so having his company here in New York on Broadway, I really tried on several occasions to set up an appointment to go see him. I was never able to do so. And maybe it was all a blessing, but I wanted him to know. And one of his assistants I knew very well, I told her what his numbers was. But, you know, only when people is catching it, then they want to say, well, what those numbers are again. But it's kind of like too late.
I was going to make a little joke, but I'll leave it there.
I want to hear it, but I ain't going to start no stuff. I ain't
I
gonna
was going to say you probably can go visit him now.
there would be no problem. I know where to find him at too.
You know exactly where to
Yeah.
find him at. He'll probably welcome the visit.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So that's it. And then there's some other things too. So now, as you see at the bottom of this is the Diddy and his opposition numbers, which is the 6, the 8, and the 2. Again, I cannot stress people out of habit, out of nature. When I do countless TV shows, personal appearance, they always know their lucky numbers, I guess, for lottery purposes. What they fail to do is ask me the numbers to give them challenges. So, for example, a number 4 should not live in an 8 house. A number 8 should not live in a 4 house. Okay, those are one of the things. Number 4 should live in a house such as a 1 or 2 or 7. A number 8 should live in a house that's a 3, 6, and those are things. So they're little rules they have. And so once people get the hang of it, I mean, as I said, the sun doesn't come out every day. And when we see this, you'll see what I'm talking about. So what is his stress days? Friday, Saturday, Wednesday. So and then excuse me, Friday, Saturday, and Monday. And in fact, when his court appearance started on the 5th, it was on a Monday, one of his stress days, too, by the way. And those are the dates that are challenging to him: the 6th to 8th, the 2nd to 6th to 8th, the 11th to 15th, 17th, 20th, 24th, 26th, and 29th of the month. And his troubling months are normally January, May, June, and July. So as you see, he's in the middle of it. His court case started right now in the month of May and is going for 8 weeks, his number. And he's got to sit there and hear all that stuff. And I mean, they're pouring out everything, and he can't go nowhere. He can't turn his head. He can't hide. So that's the thing with sometimes you can run, but there are things you just can't run away from.
I
So
have a question. When you know that you have these oppositional numbers, and let's just say that you are in a relationship with somebody that is one of those oppositional numbers,
mhm.
or maybe it's an oppositional day or month for you, what can you do about that? Should you just say, oh, I'm not dealing with that person at all because they're my opposition?
Well, the key is because people don't know going in. Once you do know, you either try to make the best of it. So it's attitude that counts. And the way I tried to explain it in the days of grandparents and their parents and parents, they wasn't into numbers. They wasn't into. There was some people who just had this thing where they got along, and then there was some people in their lifelong relationship that just had friction, but they just did not know why. And hopefully they try to say, okay, enough is enough. And it's like that illustration I'll give from time to time where you have two mules going in the same direction with a rope wrapped around their necks, and they have to decide whether we're going to go one way together or another way together. But trying to go the same on opposite directions with ropes tied around their neck, no one gets anywhere. So then you then figure it out. Okay, if we're going to do it, we let us both go this way or let us both go that way. That's how it works, you know. So and so then if we go to the next one, because those are his stress months. But what's interesting is the women in his life. Now he's had several women, that's true, but there have been four. The one is Missa Hilton, and noted she was born in January, a stress month, on the 6th in a stress year. I mean a stress date. So, but yet she became the mother of his first child, and the child Justin was born in 1993, which is 22, and 2 plus 2 is 4. So it tells me that was a very challenging year for her in that year. Okay, and in fact, she was in a um, she was in a one personal year where she had to stand on her own. She subsequently had two children after that by other people. She's now married. She's a fashion designer, things like that, actress and whatnot. So then next came Kim Porter, December the 16th, and born in the year of the 8th. Okay. One of his opposition numbers, but he became the um, she became the mother of his three children because he had two twins and then a son. All right. And then he had a relationship with Jennifer Lopez from 1999 to 2001, a 3-year relationship. But notice she was a 6. And in the case of Kim Porter and Jennifer Lopez, they were both fire signs. They were fire sign 6. So they were fire signs with an earth number, trying to control an air number with a water energy, you know. And here's the irony about Kim Porter, because when she passed away actually exactly 1 month before her birthday on November the 15th of 2018. She was in a 52-day critical cycle. Those who understand the Rosicrucian cycle is a cycle that goes from birthday to birthday. And so it's broken into 7 phases each, and each phase is broken into 52 days. So as you're coming back around to your birthday, which is 52 days before your birthday, and she was only 30 days prior, so she had been in it since around about, if that was in November, she had probably been in, it's probably since somewhere around late September, October, when she was in her critical cycle. But I know it's so ironic that she was born on the 15th and died on the 15th. Normally, it's rare for a person to die on the same date of their birth, even if it's in a different month, because normally it's a different date. But I just thought that was so ironic. But yet, she was a number 6. And then, of course, it was Jennifer Lopez. And in fact, this when they got caught up into this bar thing in the club, a nightclub, and Diddy got into an argument, guns started shooting off, and everybody running from the club, and the police pulled him over, and there was a gentleman named Shine, okay, and Shine was caught holding the bag. P Diddy got off, but Shine got 10 years. He's Belize. He's now a politician as against a rapper in Belize now. And then finally it's Cassie, and that's it. That was been the longest of the relationships he had, because he was with Kimbaley from 1994 to 2007, but he was with Cassie for 11 years. So he got her when she was very young. He so-called, as they call it, groomed her, you know. Then, she's called smitten by the fact that he's big dog. He's Bad Boy Records. He got her a music contract. She got a record out, and it can be very intoxicating. And I guess there would be a lot of things one would put up with for that kind of, but the price she paid on the other end, if you probably ask her now, was it worth it? She probably say no. Some of it, yes, true, in terms of developing her artistic gifts, singing, fashion, things of that nature. But the psychological and physical abuse, like what was seen in the hallway at the Intercontinental Hotel on March the 5th of 2016, no. Mm-mm. Now, what are
You,
the
you know what a lot that came up in the trial too? It's a lot of 6 stuff and 8 stuff coming up in the trial, whether it's money. There's also some 2 stuff coming up there. So a lot of the things that you're hearing about is usually the 2, the 6, and the 8. And I just thought it's so interesting that him and Cassie were together for 11 years, and that one
two?
plus one is
Two,
two,
exactly.
and it's a higher vibration of the two. So it was kind of like her awakening.
Well, and you know what's interesting? On the day that that video was recorded of him abusing her in the hallway and dragging her and kicking her, it was on an 8 Universal Day, one of his numbers, and it was on the 6th floor.
That's not the first place. He was on the 6th floor somewhere. Somebody even commented, this guy must love the 6th floor. What is it about the 6th floor?
I'd have told him to stay away. I'd have told him, man, of all these floors this building got, you can't pick another floor. Like, won't you pick a 4th floor, brother? Okay. Maybe number 9 or number 1 or 10. And leave 615 to 24 and 33 alone. but what do I know? You know? But see, this is why the role that we play as astro-numerologists are very important. And oftentimes, unfortunately, people really don't know or realize our value until it's almost too late. Maybe it would have been a difference had for many years I've been trying to see him to go to his office when it was on downtown on Broadway. Maybe it would have been a difference where I could have told him these are your opposition numbers. Now, whether he'd listen to me or not is a whole nother story. You know what I'm saying? But at least this way he would have known. At least this way he could have said, you know what? Every time there's a 6 or an 8, there seems to be a challenge with it. And in this case, just these 4 women alone. And then if we threw in uh, young Miami, who was born on February the 11th, 1 plus 1 is 2. That makes sense, because that's one of the numbers. So what you gonna do? It's just the most amazing thing, and so you see these things, and also the fact that with the 2, like when when, you know, AIDS was the big thing in the late 80s, 90s, was everybody's getting AIDS. So at City College of New York, here in Harlem, he decided after this basketball game to put on this event. Well, he oversold the crowd. Okay. And I think we were sharing the fact that his security was saying, listen, man, you know, you're going to have too many people up in there. But when you get, you know, you're heady, you're popular, you got a turnout like that, and it caused a stampede and 9 people were killed. But that, notice, 9 people were killed in 1991, which is the year of the two, because that year adds up to 20. Okay. And then before this even came to pass with Cassie in 2024, there were claimants between the year of 1991, a two, to 2009, which is a two, because 2 plus 0 is 11, and 1 plus 1 is 2, they filed sexual harassment and abuse. So, you know, it's not that we're trying to make this up, but I think this is a good demonstration that everybody, and you don't have to be a Diddy, you are just as important. God is assigned to you just as he's assigned to Diddy and everybody else their numbers. And perhaps had Cassie known that she was an 8, 6, and 5, and knowing that 4 is her major opposition number, and says, well, yes, I said you could, but maybe you need to approach that with care. Now, you cannot hold everybody's hands, Kimbaley. You just can't. But at least it can't be said we did not have this conversation.
I just thought about it in that way because we've been thinking about, him and his life and his oppositions. But if all of these women and all of these other people that was in his life that was opposition to him or they had opposition numbers, they could have protected themselves too. Like this person may not be any good for me, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Well, you know what it's like, as I try to explain to people, it's like being on Amtrak and you're going from north to south. Well, there's stops along the way, and you have to know when to get off on your stop, or somebody can allow you to take you all the way to the end of their stop and leave you stranded. So I speak in symbolic terms, but it has a lot of common sense in it along the way. And maybe had she known, maybe she would have only gone but so far. And then what happened, but being young and receptive, and then she burned Kid Kitty. Then Diddy burned Kid Kitty's car, because Kid Kitty was in fact born in Aquarius on January the 30th of the month, but he burned his car, and also threatened him too. And Cassie also said they even met. He asked about his car. Diddy just said, what car? Like it was like, but when you got all that kind of money and influence and you got access to power and stuff like that, it gets heady. It gets heady. And sometimes
It
people,
goes back to what I said earlier, all of these people that could use just a little tiny bit of that money and it's just being wasted, whether, despite the fact of whether you're guilty or innocent, look at how much money is wasted just in attorneys.
well, yes, he had to pay a lot of attorneys, and that money could have been to help homeless families, okay, homeless shelters, help the elderlies in the community. Because what the elders going to do, okay? The fact that they can even pay their rent, keep a roof over their head, and have some food, they happy. They're not going to ask for no luxurious cars and diamonds and minks and cars. They're just not going to do that. That's not their energy. These elders are doing the best they can in this climate. And yet you've got this, for example, there was an article I read that this year alone, 10 people have made in excess over $365 billion in profits. And yet the government is ready to cut $1 trillion in Medicaid and food stamps. There's something, well, anyway, that's the politics of it. But, and you know what's interesting is this too. I just thought it was interesting because there was this conversation about Al B. Shore. And Al B. Shore was a number 4. And Jamie Foxx was a number 4. Now, what is so interesting about them? They both knew Diddy. In fact, Al B. Shore even more so because he was going to do a documentary on Diddy before Kim Porter, which was the mother of his first child, Christian, uh, told him he mysteriously had pneumonia. Jamie Foxx was near death with pneumonia, okay, which is interesting. So how are they getting it? But both these gentlemen were fours. Al B. Sure was born on the 4th of June. Jamie Foxx, that I had the pleasure of meeting, was born on December the 13th. 1 plus 3 is 4. 4 always represents odd and unusual illnesses, very difficult to diagnose, you know, but they all had something supposedly on Diddy. And especially I'll be sure because he's going to make a documentary. And another person who was a number 6 was 50 Cent. July the 6th. And they've
I
been in each
forgot
other ever
about
since.
that one.
I didn't.
I forgot about that one.
Yeah,
How could I?
yeah, and Diddy said, 50 Cent just said right on the screen, yeah, he wanted to take me shopping. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, yeah, yeah. And he said he took Meek Mill shopping. Next thing you see a picture of him and Meek Mill with the same outfits on. Yeah, at the party. Yeah. So it's
What? I'm
yeah,
not
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
touch that with a 10-foot pole.
I'm just saying what they said. That's all.
I'm not even going to
Yeah,
touch
yeah.
that.
But it's interesting. The hand is the visible part of the brain. Everything we do with our hands starts in the mind. We don't even think about it. Whether we pick up a loaf of this, count money, rub ourselves, wash ourselves, hug our children, hug our mates, whatever the case is, that we just don't think about it. Like me, I'm very animated with my hands. Maybe that's because my mind is animated. Who knows? And then you got some people who just keep their hands still. But their hands will tell you a lot. And even Napoleon, the famous general in the 1800s, says the face may deceive, which means you can put on all the makeup, ladies, and you men can put on all the front you want, but the hand never. And had somebody looked at P. Diddy's hands, I would have told the woman, if you're going to deal with this situation, be prepared for the consequences. Because Kim Porter was scared, was she not? Kim Porter was starting to document all the things he was doing, okay, and told I'll be sure that you better watch your back too, okay. No telling what J Lo knew, okay. And so by the time it got to Cassie, Cassie was shown the real dark side of this person. And we're not here to talk bad about anybody. We're just saying, because we don't know them, but based upon testimony and based upon what I'm going to show you in the hands of P. Diddy, it could begin to understand that and make sense. Now, here it's not the clearest picture, but what happens is you can see his fingers. See, people are more accustomed to looking at the lines in the hands, but a lot of people just not going to walk up to you and let you and open up their hands and say, took a look at my hands and my lines. They're not. So you can observe, first of all, the first thing I notice, he has long fingers. This means a person very intelligent, going into details. The fact when Cassie said how he would like to choreograph, to stop and do the pause, that's kind of getting into the weeds where he wanted it perfect. Okay, that's the detail side of long-fingered people. Not only that, but it looked like he has square nails. And again, it's not the best copy, but square nail people have more of a business-minded kind of personality. When he was 29, he set up this clothing store, Sean John clothing line. In fact, he sold it to a clothing company a little later on. They made, and in fact, the guy he sold it to is a billionaire and invested $100 million into that clothing company. Okay,
Wow.
that took it off. So that's what I'm looking at. Now, in this image, if you look, you can see both his hands clearly. The hand that's closest to his face is his right hand. Normally, the left hand and the right hand are totally different. With his hands, his fingers extended, you can see he has long fingers, which denotes a love of details, things of that nature. He has a well-developed thumb, which denotes will and logic. If you look at his hands at a distance, that is, you'll see that going around the ball of his thumb is his lifeline. There's a line going across the center of his hand, which is a headline. But the line I'm looking for is the line that's underneath his fingers. That's called the heart line. It deals with the mental affections. Normally, it should end between the first two fingers of the hand, which it appears to. Okay. But if we look at that left hand closer, you'll see something else, which I'll explain in a moment. Now, here we have a close-up of that left hand, the right hand, excuse me. Yes. If you look, you'll see that the lifeline is that line that goes around the ball of the hand. That denotes the vitality. But if you notice at the beginning of that line, there seems to be like a little teardrop, which they call in palmistry an island. And it means a weakness. And because the headline, which is branching out as he gets around about the late teens, 20s, is tied down to the lifeline, it tells me probably a very, very sensitive beginning. That's what it would indicate to me. And then as he got older, then it goes straight across rather than sloping, which means more of a business minded kind of attitude in terms of way of thinking. What struck me though was the heart line. Now, the heart line is that uppermost top of the line that goes underneath the fingers. And if you look at it, although it's supposed to start under the pinky and go across the hand, and then it should curve up and in between the first two fingers. The first finger is Jupiter, the second finger is Saturn. However, if you look closer, it seems to send off a branch that goes underneath the first finger. Now that's the Jupiter finger, and Jupiter is known to the negative as the dictator finger, where they like control, absolute control. So had Jennifer showed me, excuse me, had I should say Cassie showed me a picture of this hand, I would have told Cassie, well, whoever this person is, just be careful, because again, we're always on our best behavior when we're first dating and going out, and that's the way it appeared to be from her testimony too. But as time went on, she found out that she had somebody else totally on her hands, and that would kind of make sense. And so this means that this person would have control issues, and the same thing is found in a woman's hand too. If on the heart line that branches out under the first line, you best believe she will be dictatorial and controlling about your emotions, your feelings, when to do this, that, and the other. And because he has long fingers, which is a love of detail, this would explain, as I was saying earlier, about all the impressions of her wanting of or whatever she was doing in these freak offs, that it had to be choreographed, the lighting, the this, that, and the other, like making a movie. Okay. So this is what I see. So that's what I would have told her. And by the way, if you're not trained as I am, you'll see that going around the ball of the thumb, there's a small island just before it gets to the wrist, and that would be around about the 50s. Okay. And the island, whenever found on any line, whether it's a lifeline, headline, or heart line, shows a weakness or defect or a flaw. And maybe that's it, that somewhere along the line that his life was affected, that may have led to his institutional arrest. If you look under his ring finger, that's the one next to the pinky, you'll see that there's a line that's going up the hand. It looks like a crease, actually, but it looks more like a line. And that's the line that normally brings notoriety. That's why they call it the sun line, that a person normally sees, gets some sun in terms of exposure to whether it's local, community, national, international at some point in time. But I was just struck by the fact of that heart line, because a lot of this deals with the affections, a lot of this deals with the control. Now, this is Cassie's hands. Now, she has average size hands. They're kind of slightly long too. So that tells me she's very intelligent also. But if you look, her third finger is longer than her first finger. So the length of fingers have a lot to do with the personality. So since her third finger rules the sun, that means it indicates one who is probably very creative, very imaginative, very expressive. And the irony is, when you took the month, the day, and the year she's born, August the 26th, 1986, it adds up to 22-4. So her destiny or life path was a 4. So she technically was an 8-4. It's interesting, an 8-month, an 8-day, and then the year of the 6. So this may explain that some of her life, because at her age, she was in her formative cycles, which covers from the time she gets up until about the time of her 29th birthday. She's now 30 something. So she's now in her formative cycles, but it's 8 in the first month, 8 in the second month. So it tells me that the first 2/3 of her life would always be some instance of fate or destiny. And little known that when she sued Diddy and won that $20 million settlement, it actually snowballed where a whole lot of people came forward, and nothing has been going well for Diddy ever since then too. So I think we have another picture of her hand as well too, but this is the back of her fingers. She has conic nails, which is creative. So here we look at her right hand. No, that's her. Yeah, that's her right hand, and you can see from her fingers now. There's these lines that's going in the fingers, like dividing the lines into sections. Those are called phalanges. So it seems like it looks to me like the bottom phalanges is longer. So the top line, the first phalange is spiritual, the second phalange that it's in the middle is mental, not kind of, it is mental, and the last phalange bottom is material or physical. So that means she may have enjoyed some of the perks and the uh, physical things of cars and homes and all those things that she was exposed to in that sense. But those are her fingers. I think we have another picture of her hand too, if I'm not mistaken. She has it looks like she's got long palms that would suggest earth. Earth and fire have long palms, and it looks like therefore the hands would be shorter. But if you can tell the ring finger is a little bit longer, at least from there, is longer than the first finger, that would denote something being exposed to the public, notoriety, or things of that nature. So that's what I'm looking at with her hand. And this is her left hand. Is kind of like hard to see, but it looks like the headline. But don't forget, with the left hand is what she inherits from her parents, her mom and dad. It is her right hand which she develops for herself, because it's not a clear hand, but it does look like her heart line, which is the line underneath the fingers, is going straight in the way it's supposed to. All right. And I know, obviously, from her being the recipient of abuse and whatnot, that her lifeline did not go under her first finger. That's for sure. Because if so, then Diddy would have had a problem on his hands, because both of them trying to control each other would have never worked. And this hand here is Dawn Richards. Now, she is a Leo. She's the fifth. Her numbers. Now, if you look at her right hand, which it is, see her headline is going where it's supposed to. It's supposed to end going up and curving toward the first, ending between the first and second finger. Now, but if you look at her headline, that's the one that's underneath that line, that's in the center. That's going straight across, which means Dawn Richards definitely had a head for business. Then her being a Leo too. But it also looks with that there's a slight line going up, and this is not the clearest picture, but it's look like a fate line. It's almost going up to the second finger, and the second finger is known as Saturn, which is the planet of fate or destiny, which is why that line is called the fate line. And it looks like there was a change just as she was approaching her 35th birthday, and right after that a little bit, and then it stopped between her 40s and 50s. So maybe that's when she may have faded from the scene, or whatever the case may be. Her lifeline is going all around, which looks pretty good. But her headline looks very strong. And again, definitely ahead for business. Okay. And that's what I see with that. Now, this is another picture of her hand. This is her left hand. This is her left hand. Now, here, if you see, there's the lifeline and the headline are joined together, but she does have long fingers, considering she equally has long palms. So that would indicate either an air sign, but she has an air number. So that may make sense too. But she does have long fingers, which means very detailed. She has a well-developed thumb, which denotes her will and logic. That's balanced. And again, she's a Leo. Most people know, if you know anything about Leos, you don't mess with them. You could, but I wouldn't do it. That's all I would tell somebody. And so that's what I'm looking at. Her lines look good and whatnot. But again, even in the left hand, I see that the fate line ends at the 35th birthday. In other words, the headline divides the lower part from 35 years under, and above that headline, which is that line in the center, it governs those above 35 and over. So now at this point that she's over 35, I would definitely look above that headline to see what's going on now. So she may have done very well up until her 35th birthday and then made a switch or change of career and just back from the scenery of things in entertainment, especially based upon all the things that's been coming out in the courtroom. So that's the long and short of it, looking at the numbers and the palms. So I'd like people's comments about what they think. I'm sure some of them have some of their ideas or whatever the case is.
What do you think? Do you think, looking at the analysis, looking at the numbers and the palms of the people that we have today, mainly uh, P. Diddy's and Cassie's, do you think that, what, how do you feel? I don't want you to give a guilty or a not
No, well,
guilty.
it's not my role to say guilty. I think that's from whatever has just been come out, going in the 4 weeks of an 8-week trial. You know, and the one thing that's so unfortunate, if there was any room for doubt, when the prosecutors released that about 7-minute video at the Intercontinental Hotel that took place on March the 5th of 2016, when he actually snatched her from the elevator and punched her and kicked her, that doesn't look good for him. I don't care. Even if it's just that one thing, you know, my grandparents used to have this saying: if you got to put your hands on her, bring her home. You got to do that, bring her home. You could tell she was obviously afraid. Looking at it, she tried to put on her shoes, waiting for the elevator. She just walked out. She probably thought he was probably asleep and was just gonna go. She probably had no plans, nowhere to go, just out of there. And he comes running out there, yoke her, throw her to the ground, kick her, drag her. I'll put it this way: it's not a good look for a guy. Okay, it's
And I
not.
kind of look at it from a different perspective, you can look at it that way, and I think that's how most people are looking at it. But to me, it's like the awakening. It's really like showing us the type of world that we live in. Like I said, this is one of the biggest things that I can recall happening. I remember the Oklahoma City bombing. I
Mm-hmm,
remember
mm-hmm,
the OJ trials, even the R. Kelly trials, but
mm-hmm.
with this one, I think it's just so different because it's like so many people involved, and I hope that everybody, the victims, and they're just everything just works out in a way, that everybody that had to go through things, they can heal and prepare for the next level of their life. But I think that this is transformation that we're going through.
I'd have to agree with you. It's certainly been an eye opener, and I think that the average Joe, so to speak, will begin to look at all entertainers and celebrities with a whole different lens. That everything is not what they see, and that is the party. It's like, well, Hollywood rules illusions and delusions anyway.
Hmm.
So when you look at those movies and all that stuff, all that special effects, okay, and the special effects of these guys uh, could do no wrong. But when you listen to these witnesses come forth and testifying about just not Diddy, but all the people he's connected to, got those antennas connected from Clive Davis to this, that, and the other. People going to be looking at all these entertainers in a
It's
whole.
unbelievable. It's simply unbelievable. Some of the things are just like unheard of. Like people do that, it's just unheard of.
Well, it's like you said when you showed that picture of them, they look absolutely like a happy, perfect couple. You thought that they go home, love each other, this, that, and the other, and maybe to a degree, but there was a sadistic kind of way that's done. And so again, that's why when I teach my palmistry course, the one line you got to look at in terms of affection is the heart line. That will tell you a lot about how that's going to go, because the heart line is found. See, the lower part of the hand beneath the hand is the physical, and above the the headline is the mental. So it tells the mental way you look at things, the mental way you love and express yourself and stuff like that. And so I would just say that, and just based upon what she said and other things, his love was totally dictatorial. Everything had to be under control.
And
You
that's what you hear. That's the ongoing. That's the ongoing theme for this whole thing. Everybody has been talking about the level of control, and to I want everybody to listen at this and kind of I want everybody to know and understand that it is important to know yourself metaphysically. Know your numerology, your numbers, get the basics of the palmistry class. There's another one coming up in July. Go to
know, July 29th. Mm-hmm.
lloyd-strayhorn.com and know the basics, because you can look at somebody's palm and you can tell whether they're going to be a dictator or not. You can tell, what their tendencies are. And this is before you even get to deal closely with the person. You can look at their numbers and you can tell what type of person they are, and even with him, one thing that we didn't bring up, he's born in the 11th month, and one of his numbers is a 9. That's a
Yeah, yeah,
contradiction right
yeah,
there.
yep,
That's a
yeah,
contradiction.
yeah.
And so that's what we keep hearing. People keep saying he's bipolar. No, it's a contradiction in who he is because of this water energy mixed with,
And
that
but
fire
what's
number.
also makes sense too is we know that the month and day when you add it together represents the first pinnacle, which is a 6.
Yeah.
So that may explain the early childhood, the teardrop or the island that was at the very beginning of the lifeline that started it. So and his father was killed at a very early age, assassinated on Central Park West. His father was shot, and stuff like that. So it could be a lot.
Another aha moment too was when you said Cassie's life path. Cassie is an 8, but her life path
It's a
is a
4.
22-4.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So she's in opposition with herself as well. And so
Contradictory.
it's not that you don't have opposition to numbers or times. It's just when you learn yourself and learn about these oppositions, you're able to move in a way that can help you flow better than what you normally would. You can get through what you're going through if you know what it is that you're going through.
It can make all the difference in the world.
It
So
can make all the difference in the world. You said it more simply than I did. You said it better than I did.
yeah, yeah,
But that's exactly right. And I just want people to know, since we are encouraging people to find out more about their numbers, you should join Lloyd on June the 3rd at 7 p.m. for Ask Me Anything question. Oh, I
yeah.
asked the first question. Is it really true? Can we ask you anything about
Anything that I think I
astronumerology?
can intelligently answer. But before
Okay.
there's something you said a moment ago, which is in essence, as the philosopher says, know thyself. And that is through the art of astrology, numerology, palmistry, whatever branch it is, to know thyself. Yes, you ask me any question. I don't mean you're gonna get any answer, but you can ask me any question.
That's no fair. But I just want to let you know, if you're interested in that, get on top of it, because this is a very limited amount of space. This has
Yes,
been the
very,
most
very limited.
limited space so far. And I also want people to, I'm going to put your banner up, go to your link tree / numbers and you. And if you don't have the Star 8 app, you're missing out. Make sure you either go to Google Play or the App Store to download that app. It's very helpful. It will, in fact, show you those days that you need to be cautious of and those days that are good for you. And also check out that palmistry workshop that we talked about earlier. Coming up soon, I will be on Queen Bee's channel, and I'm going to leave her information down in the comment section, because when I go there, I want you to follow me there and check me out when I release the Bad Boy Records version of the Astro-Numerology Reveal, where I will be specifically focusing on the business, because the reason why it's so important for me is because some of the charges he's facing is all about using the business as a criminal enterprise. And I've been telling people about how important the vibration is of your business. So why not check out Bad Boys and see what kind of vibrations they got going on?
Now, before we end, don't you have business consultations you do? Don't you have your flyer about that?
Yes, I also do
Astro-numerology business
business
for businesses?
consultations. Keep me on point. I can't remember it all now.
Well, that's one.
I can't
There
remember
we
it
go.
all.
There we go.
But yes, I am doing business astronumerology. You
Know
can
thy
find
business.
your.
That's what you need to do. Not only know thyself, but know thy business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the point. Know thy business.
that's an extension of you. Your business is an extension of you. So I want everybody to align your business with success. And like I said, it's going to be transformation. It's going to be people that are going to have to step up and the industries and become business owners or expand in their businesses, because there's going to be a transfer of wealth. Are you going to be on the other side of it with your hands open, ready for it to come into you? Well, you got to make sure that your business is in alignment. I offer reports, consultations, name analysis, help you align your name with your business. I help you forecast and project best times in your business. I help you figure out what your business mission is, what you should be working towards, who your target audience is, and the best days and times for your business, just like how we were able to look at P. Diddy's numbers and see what the best numbers is for him as an individual and what days he should be cautious of. Well, you can do the same thing for your business. And what this does is to help your business flow in harmony. So you can check me out on Kimbaley.com. And if you want to know a little bit more about it, sign up for a 30-minute consultation. It's complimentary. I'll let you know what it is, explain it a little bit deeper, find out about your business, and give you a few suggestions based upon what you told me. So make sure that you check me out. And I just want to say thank you, Lloyd, for
And before
coming.
you take the flyer off, I want people to say that everybody knows J.P. Morgan Bank. Well, J.P. Morgan, a famous financier born on the 17th of April in the 1800s, used an astrologer to guide his business. Now, J.P. Morgan died on March the 31st of 1912. To this day, J.P.
Oh
Morgan
no,
still
oh
exists.
no, you know my mind is still ticking.
Good.
He was born on what day?
April 17th, a money day.
And what day did he die?
He died on the 31st of 4.
Okay. All right.
And
That this confirms
in
everything.
1912, which adds up to 13, which is a 4.
That
Don't get
just
me started.
see,
The
you got me
astrologer
coming
he
back.
used, Evangeline Adams, was born on the 8th of February. Like him. He was an 8 and she was an 8. And she, in her
Interesting.
book, The Bowl of Heaven, said she taught him astrology. So it's no guess. You get to buy her autobiography. I've got it. And she makes it clear. Well, I taught him. And so when asked, does it make millionaires? He says, no, astrology makes billionaires. And now you adding numerology to the pot too? They better come and see you for that 30-minute complimentary consultation. That's all I know.
Check me out, guys. Check me out. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming and gossiping with me for a little while. I had to get my gossip on. I had to have a
You wouldn't
little,
be a woman if you didn't gossip a little bit.
had to hear a little scandal. So,
Everybody
so
likes a little scandal. You know what I'm saying? It's
just
that's
a little bit, just a
yeah,
little bit.
yeah,
Nothing
yeah,
wrong with that.
yeah.
Well, we'll see you later. Thank you so much for
Kimberly, I
coming
want to
out.
thank you so much, and thank you for letting me. And for people, we're not trying to pass judgment whether the man is guilty or not. I think whatever people are hearing, I think people have already made assessments for themselves. It is not our job to do that. We just want to make a metaphysical look at this person. That's all we wanted to do.
You know what I say? The attorneys and all of the people that are getting paid all this money, let them pay attention to their job. That's not our job.
Yeah, it's not our job. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm just a spectator.
Yeah, and we'll see how it's going to go. But for those of you who are watching this broadcast, why don't you leave your comments, yes or no? And we're not asking is they guilty or not. We're not kind of that survey, but just what do you think of this assessment? Is this good, or can you use it in a way? Does it help you because you have numbers just like he does? And thanks, Kimberly. This was very interesting. And everything is going to come out in the wash. It seems to be doing that anyway.
Yeah.
We just wanted to add a metaphysical perspective. But please remember, folks, every single one of you have your numbers too. So learn your numbers. It's important. Learn the numbers that go against you. For those of you who have businesses, you should contact Ms. Kimberly for that complimentary consultation to give yourself direction. Because if J.P. Morgan used an astrologer to pull it off, and to this day, after all these over 100 years, he's passed away, and his name is still in the financial world, perhaps yours may be there too if you consult Ms. Kimberly.
And I just thought about too. Maybe we should come back at the end of the trial and break down the trial.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Find out what's happening.